Are you seeing this? I'll give you something new. Bliss 4 Premium Condoms is the only brand that comes with 4 pieces in a pack. Because we know she'll be begging for more. So why stop at 3? This guy is made by the biggest maker of condoms in the world. And he knows exactly what you need. With an amazing quality that you can trust and feel, Bliss wants what's best for you. And for that much-awaited sexy time. Don't panic if you won't have enough. We make sure you're always wrapped.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you do it on the bed. Bang in the car. Or be sneaky in the shower. Be confident you're this protected. Those first 3 words, ignite it with 4.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't settle for 3. Bliss 4 Premium Condoms.
Why go invisible when you can glow? Premier Condoms.
The world is full of love and happiness. Happiness is loving yourself and being less concerned with the approval of others. Live your life in your own way and love without inhibitions or hesitations. But a moment of mistake may cause a lifetime of regret. Despite using safety measures, new HIV infections are increasing and many people are at risk of getting infected. These are the groups with highest HIV risk. Introducing an effective preventive tool, Be Prepared, a combination of tenofovir and emtricitabine 300 mg and 200 mg. Just 1 pill a day can keep HIV away.
Hi! Good evening!
Good evening, guys!
Sakto, no? Good evening. Sakto, girl, nakarating na si Ira, di ba?
After the stress sa mga pusis niya.
Kunin mo kasi yung pusa.
Happy Friday night and
Happy
welcome
Friday! Welcome back.
Happy Friday!
Namiss ko kayo.
Yes,
Oo nga, ito rin na-miss ka rin namin. Parang 2 linggo kang wala.
Kaya nga kasi
Ate Janlee, na-miss ko magsando sa sa live.
Oy,
na-miss ko
salamat.
talaga.
Salamat Ate Chal sa pagsama sa amin sa Fact You ng Lunes.
The pleasure is mine, at Ate Janlee, isa lang sasabihin ko, fact you too.
Top ka na ba?
Well, recently I've discovered ganito pa, masarap pala yung feeling kapag nasa top ka. So, yeah, malay mo, char.
Akala ko si Ate Janlee yung top.
Naniniwala pong top kami ni Chal. Please press me.
Yes.
Yeah, so welcome back to Kinks and Queens, everyone. And another Friday night of chikahan and Kweentuhan for the greater LGBTQIA+ queer community. So we're super excited to be back tonight, syempre. Although medyo maging seryoso yung ating discussion tonight.
Oo.
Diba? Alam nyo yan. Pero
Yeah.
it doesn't mean naman hindi tayo magtatawanan. Of course, kailangan pa rin natin mag-enjoy. But at the same time, the goal really tonight is to spread awareness on a topic na kailangan natin pag-usapan at hindi masyadong nabibigyan ng focus.
Correct. Tama.
Yes.
So, our topic for tonight or our episode for tonight is called sexual refuse. So, di ba, sanay tayo sexual abuse pero gusto nating ibahin yung perception ng mga tao. Sa halip na sexual abuse, gamitin natin yung sexual refuse. Dahil we refuse to be victimized and to be abused, and we want to reclaim our power, especially for the survivors of sexual abuse. Andito tayo for them. Ayan. Sige, so bago tayo magpunta sa main event, kumustahin ko muna kayo. Kamusta, Ate Chal, since nasimulan na natin?
So far, so good. Nung parang since Monday, busy, tapos may physical pain akong iniinda, yung ngipin ko, masakit, like almost the whole week. Pero kinaya naman at nagpa-dentista na tayo kahapon. And siguro, to go back to the topic tonight, medyo I had to talk to some people for me to be emotionally and mentally ready for tonight's episode. Parang ganon.
Correct. Ayan. So, syempre, again, as mentioned, di ba, mas seryoso ang ating topic tonight. Pero syempre, meron tayong guests din to help us with our topic. Thank you, Ate Chal. How about you, Ate Ira?
Di ba nga, sobrang ko dun, triggered ako sa usaping ito. Kaya feeling ko, hindi ko alam kung makakapag-share ako talaga ng share all out or naandun ako sa punto na I'll be holding back pa din. Pero let's see, and hopefully after this episode, gumaan yung loob ko at natin lahat. Diba? Kasi that's the goal. Ma-apply ng mga sarili natin after.
Yes.
Correct. Ang goal naman natin ay simulan yung usapan tungkol sa mahalagang topic na to dahil nga hindi siya napag-uusapan enough.
Yes.
So, it doesn't mean it will end here tonight, diba? Even after the episode, pwede naman tayong magtuloy-tuloy ng kwentuhan natin. Diba?
Yeah.
Ayan. Ikaw naman, Miguel, kamusta? Na-miss ka rin namin.
True. Ikaw na-miss kita kasi last week wala ka. I just had 2 interviews this week. Let's hope everything goes well because I really need this. I really need to find a job already. It's funny because I poured my heart out in one of those interviews, and in the same way as what we're going to do today, it seems na mas kailangan nating ilabas or i-pour ang ating puso at damdamin ngayong gabi because talking about things like this really starts the healing process. And I really want to know also how ako as an individual can help our community, can help people and can support people who have gone through these types of issues. Yan.
Ayan. So, good luck sa iyong interviews at sana makuha ka
Thank you, Te. Oo.
Tama ka, diba? Tama ka. It all starts with talking about it. And tonight, we will learn more about how to properly approach the conversations about this very sensitive yet important topic. Yan. Ikaw naman, Roberto, kamusta?
Ang bilis ng week na to for me actually. It breezed by. Parang I didn't feel like it was a Friday today. I actually thought it was a Wednesday. Sobrang lost ko sa time. Pero yun nga, ever since we've been planning about this, and I've been a strong advocate, at least to talk about this. I've talked about this on my broadcasting show dati. And it really helped people just to talk about it. Wala akong advice na binibigay, promise. But the mere fact that they felt that they weren't alone, Anyway, basta, ang point ko na is, I'm scared, happy, and actually, I'm gathering strength right now kasi though I know may mas share rin kasi ako, I'm affected by the topic and I know I have to talk about it and I know it helped me before and I know it will still will keep on helping me now and it will help others rin naman, I think. I hope. So
Yeah. Tama ka naman dyan. Sabi mo nga, Roberto, ang bilis ng linggo na 'to, ang daming nangyayari. Siyempre, apart from the pandemic, meron tayong mga kanya-kanyang personal lives that we have to deal with. And you're right, diba? It all starts with listening. Minsan kahit wala tayong sabihin, our mere presence and empathy is already such a big help for others, diba?
therapeutic na siya in itself, yes.
Correct. So, nagsimula sa pakikinig. And last but not the least, syempre, ang fresh na si Ate Belle. Kamusta?
Hello guys. Hello Ate Janlee. Good evening. Ba't parang iba yung tawa? Sorry. So yun, this week is so productive for me. And of course, it will be more productive discussing this kind of concern in our community. As you mentioned earlier, this is an issue na hindi na pag-uusapan, but yet it's really important for us. So I'm looking forward for this episode because it's really important to know to know people na andito kami. You're not alone, sabi nga ni Roberto. We're just here. We are here for you. Yun.
Yes. Diba? Ayun naman mahalaga. Ayun naman ang goal din ng Kinks and Queens, diba? To build a community, diba? To create connections and to establish a safe space for everyone in our community, diba? So tonight, that's what we will learn about. Kaya naman, we're super excited. At bago tayo tumungo doon sa main topic and sa questions, syempre, Kinks and Queens is brought to you by LoveYourself Incorporated and SpacesMNL, sponsored by Bliss Premier Condoms, and Camber, Pharmaceutical by Hetero. We are also live on SpacesMNL Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on Kumu via Bliss Mag TV. So sa mga nanonood po sa atin, please share this Facebook Live at invite your friends to watch. At napakahalaga po ng topic na ito. And please, if you have comments, if you have questions, i-type nyo lang po sa comment section para mabasa natin at masagot natin. Ayan. And again, house rules, please use the raise hand option or just type, for those in the Zoom room, type in the questions in the chat box if you want to talk. For those who want to keep their identities private, you may turn off your videos and change your names. Again, because this is a safe space for all and we respect your privacy. Ayan. So tonight, it's all about sexual refuse. So sabi nga ni Niels, good luck sa topic na to. Sabi rin ni Deej, yes, malaking good luck for all of us. Kasi nga, very sensitive siya, di ba? Very, very relevant siya. So kailangan nating pag-usapang mabuti at ng utmost sensitivity. Ayan. So, bago natin...
Kinakabahan ako. Oh my gosh.
Chill lang tayo. Siyempre, kailangan naman i-maintain natin yung casual chikahan natin, di ba?
Yes.
Para mas maintindihan natin at hindi tayo kinakabahan. So, before we move on to the main questions, gusto ko lang din tanungin ang ilan sa ating co-hosts tonight, no? Saan ang gagaling yung topic na to? I-contextualize muna natin. Bakit natin napili na pag-usapan ng topic na ito tonight? Ate Ira. Sige, mamaya ka Ate Ira kasi alam ko napakahalaga ito sa'yo. Ikaw muna Ate Chal.
Siguro sa konteksto kasi ng kung bakit importante itong pag-usapan. Kasi kahit hindi ako active sa Twitter ngayon, may mga dumating sa aking balita tungkol sa usapin sa Twitter. Gusto mo yung lumalalim talaga yung Tagalog ko tonight dahil paano ba siya? Anyway, sige, ilalabas ko yung gusto ko sabihin. Tapos, nung nalaman ko yung mga detalye and about basta everything about that particular issue, it felt so close to home. Parang gusto ko siyang pag-usapan kasi kailangan siyang pag-usapan. And sabi ko, what other show could do this aside from our show and aside from the LGBT shows that is featured in Spaces Manila, kundi yun nga, Kings and Queens and yung iba pang shows, kasi tayo, we talk about taboo topics, 'di ba? We talk about topics that are hard to talk about. We ask the questions that other people are afraid to ask. And that's the reason why we are talking about this particular topic tonight, because even though it's hard to ask, we have to ask it and we have to address it. And as part of the facilitators tonight, I just wanna throw it out there that we are with you guys. Trust us when we say na we know what you are going through and we're here to provide the safe space for us and for our community. Yun yung konteksto siguro for me ng usapin tonight.
Correct. And I couldn't agree more, Ate Chal. Who among our other hosts want to answer kung bakit natin, ayan, Ate Ira, go.
Ayan. I think very timely lang din kasi for the longest time, I refuse to talk about this topic. Because I feel like hindi ako ready emotionally na pag-usapan to kasi feeling ko wala pa ako dun sa state na I will be able to give a sound advice. Hindi ako makakapag-open up fully dahil nga feeling ko wala pa ako dun sa tamang posisyon para pag-usapan yung mga ganitong bagay. And right now na meron nga tayong ganitong issue na lumabas, I think it's just about time na din for me na magsalita and pag-usapan natin to. Kasi bilang isa ako naging, yun nga, I have experience din na, yun, I was a victim once. Kaya feeling ko, I have to stand up for the rest of the victims out there.
Yeah.
Kaya naandito tayo ngayon, pag-uusapan natin siya. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, lahat tayo, kahit paano mapagaan natin ng loob. Mapakinggan natin ang kwento ng bawat isa at matuto tayo sa mga salitang bibitawan natin. Yun lang po.
And from what you said, it really takes so much courage to step forward, diba? And talk about this. Kasi nga, diba, in our society, nasa-stigmatize and nasa-shame yung mga victims of sexual abuse.
Correct.
And so, mahirap for them to talk about it, and we just want them to know that we are here to listen. And kaya naintindihan natin, Ate Ira, kung bakit kinakabahan ka at medyo very close to your heart. And thank you for your courage and for your desire to help others then by sharing your story. Ayan. Si Roberto nagtaas din ng kamay kanina.
Hindi. Sige, let's cut it short na lang dahil para makasart na tayo. This hits close to home. Especially since, alam mo yun, even after 17, 18 years, I'm still actually affected by it. It's been so long. Pero I've only started facing it only like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So parang, it really helped just to talk about it. And I think, and I really want this to happen. Ever since season 1, I've been saying we have to do something. We have to say something. This is a strong platform. We have so many listeners and followers. And mas maraming natatap dito kesa when I was broadcasting in Blue. And I was able to help that minute section, di ba? So why not do it also here to help the healing process begin for most, if not many. So, kaya importante sa akin to happen sa show natin.
Yes, diba? That's why we have this platform, tama ka, Roberto, because we want to raise awareness on topics that really matter to our community, and not just to the LGBT community but to everyone. So ayan ang ating goal for tonight, to use our platform Kings and Queens para mas makapag-raise ng awareness. Okay, sige. So before we start, we also just want to introduce or give a shout out to our guests. Actually, lahat naman ng ating mga manonood ay ating guests every time. Pero syempre, meron tayong two special guests. One of them is a trustee and officer of various HIV NGOs and currently the president of the Red Whistle. He is also taking his Juris Doctor at the UP College of Law. Hi, Ben Bernabe.
Hi, Ben.
Hello!
Hi, Ben.
Wait,
He's on mute. He's on mute.
Nakamute ka, Ben.
Ayan, you can unmute na.
Ayan. Hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be on this show tonight pala.
Short notice na, Ben, ha? Pero thank you for gracing our show.
Oo nga, kahapon lang, no? Because I was talking with Ira kahapon and helping him with some ideas on how to frame the discussion. Tapos may invite na bigla. So buti naman free ako tonight and I'm more than happy to be here and of course banter with everyone.
O diba, ano na yan, law student na presidente pa ng TRW, busy yan, pero nakulit.
Yeah.
It's a very important issue kasi. It's a very important issue and I think itong platform ng Love Yourself and SpacesMNL is a very significant platform to discuss, no? Love Yourself and the Red Whistle have been around for almost the same time. So I think we know the experience of each other's organization. And, I think we will both benefit in sharing our experiences in this context. So sobrang thank you sa Love Yourself, sa Spaces for creating the space for one. We've tried this early in the pandemic in 2020 and saludo ako kay Kiko, kay Robin because it takes a lot of energy to produce something like this every week or at least every day may bagong show or merong show. Kami ni Nico nung napagod kami talaga kakaproduce. So sabi namin, buti na lang, there are platforms like Spaces where we can, we can talk about issues. At hindi napapagod si Kiko tsaka si Robin sa pagpo-produce ng live show. So thank you everyone.
Correct. And
Yay!
thank you Ben for joining us. And diba, we're united as a one community, not just in the HIV and AIDS advocacy, but in our greater LGBT community. And tonight, Ben can also help us give resources or information on how we can help survivors of sexual abuse and in general the topic. Kaya salamat Ben. And we're super excited to hear your insights. And also shout out, syempre, sabi nga ni Ben, kay Direk Kiko at Direk Robin. Dahil di kayo napapagod na i-direct kami. Diba? Every night.
Yes.
Love namin kayo.
Yes. And our next guest, of course, he's working as a counselor and a safe spaces coordinator at the Ateneo de Manila Gender Hub. He's also an HIV, LGBTQIA, and mental health advocate and a volunteer of Love Yourself. She is also our sister at SpacesMNL, or rather her drag persona, Clea Torres. My very good friend, Brian, aka Clea.
You can unmute.
Ayan.
Yeah, hi. So I am Hi everyone. I am not in my usual form that I appear on Spaces Manila. This is like I tell people I am currently in the form of the manager of Clea Torres. So this is who I'm. But I just want to say that I'm glad to be here because I know that this conversation you guys are going to be having is not just very important, but it's also very much it's been a long time coming. And it's about time this kind of conversation is being had by the community, because just because we're talking about it now doesn't mean that it hasn't happened in the past. that it's not been happening. That this is something that is coming to surface but needs to be talked about. Because once we start talking about it, all the shame and the stigma that keeps it in the dark will start to parang we're gonna be shedding light into that space. So it won't be so difficult to actually face and be honest about and be kind and empathic to those who share their story. So I'm very happy to be here.
And we're super happy to have you.
Yay.
And we know that you'll be here to help us also understand the mental health aspect of sexual abuse. And as mentioned, there is so much pain and trauma experienced by victims and survivors. So it's so important to learn about these things and know how we can help them. So thank you, Clea, and slash manager of Clea. And we're excited to have you. Okay, sige, ayan. So now that we've met our guests, let's discuss the first question. Roberto, gusto mo bang simulan?
Okay, sige. To start everything off, diba? We have to really know what exactly is sexual abuse. Let's start off with that kasi in that question alone, ang bigat eh. What is sexual abuse? Well, if you were to ask me, sexual abuse is basically, hindi siya basic, sorry. I should have not said. Sorry, natataranta ako, oh my God. Okay. Sexual abuse kasi is when something is taken from you without your consent. It's a part of your dignity that's taken from you. It's a part of your being a human being that's taken away from you without your consent. That for me is sexual. Woohoo! Wait lang. Well, ang dami nag-rush na sorry. Okay. Pasalo. Okay. Chal, what is for you? Let me ask my co-host.
Yes. At ang gusto mo, ako yun talaga yung sasalo.
Sorry. Yes.
Sige, hindi. But yeah, I totally agree. Sexual abuse happens for when you're in a sexual encounter without any consent. And nakita ko din kasi yung questions natin for tonight. Isa doon is if there parang when does a sexual encounter turn into sexual abuse? For me kasi it's very important to highlight that particular part because there are times wherein it's a consensual sexual encounter but in the like a part of it is non-consensual and that part is sexual abuse. It could happen. That should be clear na while you're doing it, for me, while doing a sexual act, tapos isa lang doon, you don't give consent to. However, the other person chooses not to respect your no, you not giving consent, that's already sexual abuse.
It's good, and it's also, it should be noted rin na sexual abuse also does not happen. It happens anywhere. It can happen to anyone, and it can happen to any age, from youngest hanggang ngayon, it can happen. Yun yung nakakatakot sa kanya kasi despite the fact that it happens na nga, hindi pa siya pinag-uusapan. So we have to take note of that. It can happen at any time, anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And siguro to add to that lang din, one thing that I've also learned when we had the meeting was ang daming phases ng sexual abuse. 'Di ba? But like it could happen to a kid, it could happen to an adult, it could happen to a girl, to a boy, a transsexual woman, a transsexual man. Wala siyang pinipili. Totoo yung pwede siyang mangyari kahit kanino. So, let's not brush it off because this is a really serious topic that we should talk about.
Okay.
And Ate Miguel?
Ayan. Wala ako sa meeting, di ba? I had a migraine last time. Pero, you know, hearing that from you, Chal, makes me think of what happened to me before also. Na, I also want to emphasize that just because you are under the influence, or just because you're under the influence of anything, whether it's drugs or alcohol, or just because you are or just because you're asleep, yun lang, does not give anybody the license to take that dignity away from you, regardless of what you took. They still have to get your consent, and if there is no consent, if there is no yes or no, then you did not give your consent at all. I just
Can
want
I
to
also
emphasize that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miguel. Siguro lang din para to just be cautious about the discussion then. If there is anybody out there who would like to share, like in our participants right now, who would like to share,
Yes.
and para alam namin, ngayon pa lang, palitan nyo na yung name ninyo so we can, syempre, I know that this would bring out stories, memories, emotions. Right now, please change your name and please raise your hand if you want to share something so that we can call you on the name on your chosen Zoom name. And yun nga, also to emphasize, uh, personally, I have something to share, but let's not get into details because I think our guests would agree na sharing details, intimate details, brings back a lot of emotions and memories. So let's stick to
The
the
issues.
feelings and not the details. So yun lang. Anyway, Ben?
The
Sige.
feeling.
Ben raised his hand a bit, I
Ay,
think.
sorry, Ate Janlee.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
connected.
yes.
Since we're talking about yung definition no, ng sexual abuse, um, I like to think of it as like two things. No, so one, there is the legal aspect of sexual abuse, which is punished by law, no, by the state, and also the psychological aspect of sexual abuse, no, the mental health side of sexual abuse. Maybe Brian can talk more about that side, on the psychological, mental side of abuse, no. But sexual abuse is a very broad term kasi na it's called by many names in law. So, for example, rape is a form of sexual abuse. Um,
Molesting.
sorry.
Some other word used
Molestation.
to
May
refer,
act
yeah,
of
molestation.
lasciviousness, seduction. There's also yung sexual harassment. That's the term actually, the legal term that is being used in the law. Tapos, in those laws, meron ding mga sexual favor depending on the context, no? So, for example, nagbigay ka ng sexual favor sa school to either a teacher or a fellow student or a student leader for anything. So, that's an example of sexual abuse. And ano pa ba? Sexual advances, no? Yung hindi siya, wala pang hawak, pero alam mong may something nakakaiba. No? So all of those come under the very broad umbrella of sexual abuse. And I'm not a professional psychologist, so I can't talk about the psychological aspect of that. No? But based on what I study, I know that sa public policy natin and what we view as good morals ng society, and we're not even talking about religion, we're just talking about bilang mga Pilipino, yung sa customs natin, yung sexual abuse is very much frowned upon, and not just frowned upon pero dapat yan pinaparusahan, no, sa batas, no. And I think yung broadness ng topic is what makes it very, very hard. Saan ba tayo magsisimula? Na, saan ba tayo magsisimulang? Saan ba natin pag-uusapan yung sexual abuse, no? So, it helps siguro to parang kind of have that medyo simplistic nga yung framework, and we don't want to make it simplistic, di ba? Pero I just want to share na meron kasing ibang forms of sexual abuse na probably are not yet punished by law. Hindi pa siya napaparusahan. And yung mga taong ito, they don't feel that, yung kind of processing na available sa, let's say, biktima ka ng krimen talaga, no? Na napaprocess yan eh. Pero may iba there are others who are silently suffering, and I think the psychological side of sexual abuse is mas malawak pa. Yun.
Ay. Dun pa lang.
Oo.
Lalim.
Yes. Medyo malalim-lalim ang ano natin today, ang ating topic
Discussion.
today, ate.
Correct. But thank you for clearing that out and for giving us more
Siguro
information.
to start things off, Ren, dahil nga, naman
Wait.
Go, Roberto.
Hello?
Nawala ata si Roberto.
Nawala siya.
Roberto, kaya ba today?
Roberto, nandiyan ka?
Sir 50, Roberto.
Hello, Go Sir 50 po. Pakiayos po yung Go Sir 50 po ni
Sandali,
Roberto.
loadan ko muna. Girl, teka.
Hindi, siguro
Loadan ko muna. Anong number nito?
While waiting for Roberto, siguro sisimulan ko na din kasi para lang din the people here in the room and people watching us. Kasi may nag-PM na sa akin eh. May nag-PM na sa akin about it. And totoo, that's the reason why I had to be clear why we won't be talking about the details. Okay. Yes. But I just want to share that I do have my fair share when it comes to sexual abuse, sexual harassment, whatever you call it. Again, I won't get into details. However, I want to talk about how I felt. I want to talk about how myself, the old self, felt that time. I want to share that particular trauma is something that you will carry for a lifetime. It's gonna be part of you. It could be debilitating at times, but for me, it was debilitating at the moment that I tried to process those thoughts. It was debilitating because there are a lot of emotions that I can't even put into words. I could just describe the emotions. I could just tell how it feels. Pero, ang hirap, parang kaya mo siyang sabihin, pero hindi mo siyang kayang iproseso. Parang ganon. And that's the reason why it's important to talk about it, because every time I talk about it, yes, it brings me back to that particular instance. However, it also makes me stronger. It also makes me, it makes the present Chal be the protector of that Chal that felt powerless at that time. And now, siguro yung punto nitong usapan na to is for us, the victims, who felt powerless at that time, to claim our power over our trauma. To be able to verbalize it, even though it's hard. Because it's important. Because you're important. And because whatever it is that you're feeling is valid. So, yon. So, siguro dun sa mga mag-share, let's put it in that context. It's not that we don't want to hear your stories, but just remember that we're gonna be here for whatever it is that you're feeling. Go ahead, Roberto. Wait.
Ayan, nakamute lang siya.
Ayan, sorry. Just going back to the question nga, thank you for that, Chal. Going back to the question nga of what is abuse, where it happens. The funny thing is, what happened to me was, yun nga, na-mention ko nga sa kanya, it happened to me twice actually. Yung pinaka pwede ko ma-shrug off was actually sexual advancement sa akin nung college ako. Which is the weirdest thing. It happened sa office ng thesis advisor ko. And I think it's because sinumbong ko siya, or at least sinumbong ko to a co-professor friend ko. Actually, I think that's why I passed college, and I think that's why I passed my thesis. Was because I had to talk, I had to defend myself, and ang tumatak sa akin noon kasi parang my school is my safe place, and for the first time, that was really uncomfortable for me that I had to share. So parang that's another where na parang sobrang out of the blue eh. It's not even at a bar, it's not even here sa house, or not even in a modern car. It happens at school. My second home, where I've been staying at for the past 16 years of my life, and then all of a sudden, someone touches me in places na parang, wait lang, you're my professor, why are you doing this? So, sorry, am I oversharing? Pero that was one of the few things na parang na mas nag-trigger, mas parang after that kasi, I started remembering things from the past. Na another where scenario when it happened was sa sinehan. My story was sa movie house. And that was 18 years ago. Wherein, ano alam ko? And ang nakakatakot kasi sa sexual abuse and sexual harassment is that I didn't know how to defend myself. And a simple no could have gone a long way. Pero for some reason, the fear kasi stops you. And I understand that. People really do experience that fear. Na it's paralyzing talaga when you're in that situation. And wala kang magagawa talaga. Huningin ko. And nung nangyayari yun, I was just blank. Kasi goal ko lang, guys, manood ng movie. Mga hilig ko pa nun Harry Potter. So, and then all of a sudden, there's this person who starts doing stuff to me that I couldn't say anything. Pero imagine, if I just had the power to say just a little bit of courage, a little bit of like, konti lang talaga just for me to say, sorry, please don't do that. Or just say, oy, kahit oy man lang, makareact man lang ako, would have done me so much miracle that day. I think that's one of the reasons why I started distancing myself from my family. Kasi alam ko it's something I couldn't share until I only started talking about this siguro, yun nga, nung Blood session ko. That was around 3 to 4 years ago, I think. And it helped. It helped give a face. It helped give a face to a monster that
Go lang, Roberto.
Sige lang. It's
We're
fine.
listening.
We're here.
okay. Nagkaroon lang ng face. It wasn't a ghost anymore. So, that really helped. And it's just funny and scary how it happened at the safest places you think you could be at. For me, it was my school. As a movie buff, my cinema was my home also. So, yun lang siya. And I think we should be aware and always be alert. Malakas na power ang no. And it can go a long way. Sorry, stop na.
It's okay. And we are sorry that you had to experience that. And thank you for your courage for sharing. I know it's not easy. And thank you for doing that. And I think also one thing that I got from what you shared is that kapag may nagkwento sa atin about his or her experience of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, the first thing we should do is listen and not question. Kasi may mga tao na parang, well, totoo ba yan? Diba? Parang, bakit naman mag-iimbento ang isang tao na, diba? Na abuso siya sexually. So the first thing is that we should listen and stop judging kasi common yan for us people eh. But thank you Roberto and sige, hinga-hinga ka muna dyan. Anyone else who wants to share their experiences? Ate Ira.
Yan. Diba, sobrang bigat na nung kinuwento ni Roberto, pero can you just imagine someone who will whom you thought na poprotektahan ka dahil kadugo mo siya, dahil nakakasama mo siya sa pang-araw-araw, na nasa isang kwarto kayo noon, magagawa pala niya yun sa'yo. A stranger, siguro, oo. Kasi hindi natin hawak yung pag-iisip nila. Hindi natin sila kilala. Pero yung taong nakakasama natin sa pang-araw-araw, parang mas mahirap isipin na magagawa niya yun sa'yo. Kasi that person, we used to be super close. Until the day he did things to me na I wasn't really expecting. Kasi there were no, parang there are no chances of him being gay. Or I don't know, maybe it's just a fetish for him or I don't know. Hindi ko talaga kayang i-explain ko ano yung nasa isip niya that time. All I know is whatever happened to me that night, up until that morning, I had no choice. Kasi imagine, you were in a very dark place, which is just my room. It should be a very safe space for me. Kasi that's where I sleep, that's where I get rest. Pero yung taong yun, nung pumasok nung gabi yun, hindi ko naisip na pagising ko na umaga, puyat na puyat ako dahil sa pag-iisip bakit kailangan mangyari sa akin to. So, yun, I won't go in full details na what happened that night, pero yun nga. Parang yun nangyari nung gabing yun, yung mga bagay na hindi ko ma-expect na gagawin sa'yo nung taong nire-respeto mo. I used to idolize him before. Kasi feeling ko siya yung, imahe ng pagiging lalaki for me. Kasi dati hindi ko pa din naman tanggapan sarili ko eh. So, ayun. After that night, that madaling araw, iniwasan ko na siya. And it's very hard kasi nasa isang bubong lang kami nakatira. And from that day, kada makikita ko yung mukha niya, inis na inis ako. Parang hindi ko kayang kumain sa pagkainan namin nang naandyan siya. Na hindi ko siya kayang makasama. Manood lang ng TV. Diba? Yung mga bagay na dapat nagagawa mo kasama yung mga taong malapit sa'yo, nakadugo mo, ay hindi mo na magawa. Dahil doon sa karanasan na hindi mo naman inaasahang mangyayari sa'yo. And I don't know, I was just minor pa ako nun eh. So imagine, nagbibinata pa lang ako. Hindi pa nga ako marunong manood ng porn that time siguro. Naunahan na ako nung mga bagay na dapat siguro mas natutunan ko sa paraang dapat ako yung makatuklas na hindi pwersahang ginawa sa akin. Na hindi na kasi siya isang beses eh. There was a time pa na umaayaw na ako na imagine na sasaktan ka pa niya, suntukin pa niya yung hita mo. Diba? It was really hard for me. And then I was just so glad na wala na siya sa bahay namin kasi naging addict din siya. So my mom, she has to throw him outside of the house. Pinauwi siya sa probinsya namin. And yun, parang hindi na ako humingi siya ng tawad sa akin. Inunahan ko na pinatawad ko yung sarili ko dahil hindi ako nagkaroon ng lakas ng loob na humindi nung naandun ako sa pagkakataon na parang wala akong lakas. Yun na lang yung ginawa ko. And from that day na hindi ko na siya nakikita lagi, I moved on. And I'm just glad na I became the fighter that I am today dahil dun sa mga pagkakataon na feeling ko wala akong laban. So ayun, hindi na siya ganun talaga mabigat sa akin kasi ako yung tao na ulit-ulit ko siyang iisipin. Tatanungin ko sarili ko kung may mali ako. At kapag nakuha ko na yung sagot na gusto kong makuha, iiwanan ko na yung karanasan na yun eh. Pero yung karanasan na yun, doon ako natuto eh. It's just that kailangan kong iwan yung masakit na pangyayaring yun. Learn from it, grow from it, and then move on. That's what I did. Kasi ang hirap na dala-dala ko yun hanggang ngayon. Parang hindi ako yung magiging masayahing tao. Hindi ako yung magiging kalog. Hindi ako yung magiging loko-loko. Diba? Kung dala-dala ko pa rin siya up until now. And kaya yun, ganun na lang ako ka-vocal dun sa issue na to. Whenever I see someone na mag-post na he or she was abused, parang I easily get furious. Kasi parang feeling ko meron na namang isang taong walang boses at walang lakas para humindi. And I just wish na meron akong magawa for them. Diba? And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I agreed on having this as our topic for tonight kasi it's about time to step up and be the voice for other victims. Kasi magsisimula lang yan sa isa, sa dalawa, hanggang sa lahat magkakaroon na ng lakas na loob magsalita. A lot of victims kasi naisip nila na baka pagtawanan ako, baka ako pa yung husgahan. Pero no, kayo yung ginawa ng mali. At tayo dapat yung may lakas ng loob na ibulga yung mga taong yun dun sa mga ginawa nila sa atin. Yun lamang po. Yes.
Yeah, so I would like to go back lang doon kanina sa sinabi ni Ira about a stranger na gumawa nun and then yung relatives mo. So I just want to highlight that anyone can do that to you. And accepting it is not easy, whether it will be your relatives or someone. So hindi siya madali i-accept. But the only thing that we would like to assure you guys is there are people around you that will support you. So
Yes po. At saka you guys mentioned kanina na walang muka ang mga yung mga predators na yan. I mean the victim as well as the predators. Hindi mo din minsan aakalain na sila pa yung gagawa nun sa'yo. Keso gwapo yan, keso maganda yan. If they have the motive to do it, gagawin nila yun. Diba? So, ayun lang.
Yes. And Miguel?
Yeah. No, I'll reserve that na lang, Janlee, for later. Kasi I think that's also related to what I want to say, to what I want to bring up later on in the topic. Go ahead.
Okay, sige. Sige, before we move on to the next question, no, gusto ko lang basahin yung shinare ng isa nating audience for tonight. Sabi niya, I was abused when I was in elementary, minor to minor. My classmates forced to kiss me habang yung ibang classmates ko nanonood lang, nagtatawanan. Hawak nila ako sa kamay, di makagalaw habang ginagawa nila ang kababuyan nila. Biro lang sa kanila, Pero yung trauma na naidulot noon, dinala ko hanggang magtrabaho ako. I needed to pretend to be straight para hindi na maulit yung abuse. Feeling ko that time, gayness is equal to weakness. So hindi ako pwedeng maging soft. Dahil aabusuhin lang din nila ako. Yung takot palaging nandun, baka mabuko yung galaw ko na kalkulado dahil baka mahalata nila na malambot ako at mangyari uli yung pang-aabuso. Ang laki ng mundo, mas nakakatakot ang pagtatago ng sexuality ko. At yun ang naging depensa ko para hindi na mangyari ulit yun. Thank you for sharing. I'm not gonna mention na lang the name to just say, pero thank you for sharing, and we are sorry that you had to experience that and you had to hide your being gay because you felt na it's a sign of weakness. And naka-apekto to sa'yo until now sa pagtatrabaho mo. And yun, we hope na you'll get to work through this and get through it.
May tanong ako, Ate Janlee, for Brian. How come merong ganitong mga incidents na it's a minor to minor case kasi? How come?
Nakamute siya.
I'll unmute.
Feeling ko it's a... Sige.
Okay na.
Hi. Why it happens among minors to minors?
Yes.
You know, to be honest, I don't think there's a very clear answer why this happens. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there are clear explanations, even in psychological theory, why this happens with adults. Why adults are predatory to younger individuals, why they do it to other adults.
Power play?
I think maybe the question I would like to ask you is, what makes you want to ask why this happens among minors? I'm just curious.
Parang kasi I can't imagine na, di ba, I mentioned niya kanina, it happened to me at a very young age.
Yeah.
Na wala naman sa isip ko yung kahit anong mali siya. So, paano nangyari siya na yung gumawa sa kanya nung bagay na yon, kaedad lang din niya? Which is supposed to be, ano mo yun, naive of things.
Yeah. You know, this is just a theory, kasi for me, I'm not talking as an expert, like this is the research. But sometimes they also see other adults modeling in behaviors that do not honor or respect the boundaries of other people. So they believe that because of what they see in the people or the caregivers or the models around them, you can do that to each other. Because I am with you that most children are innately good. If you surround a child with unconditional love and teach them to honor and respect other people, they will grow up to be kind individuals. But if you teach them that boundaries are not important, forcing yourself on other people is something you can do and it's acceptable, and that it actually shows that you have power, that you have worth for doing that, then they will start modeling. That modeling will start translating into their behavior.
If I may?
Yes.
Yes. Kasi parang, like ako, galing ako sa old boys school. And sadly, sige, admit ko na rin. I was a bully also before. I was a bully when I was younger. And though I didn't do this kasi I was like, I was homophobic also before. And I didn't do this, but I did condone people or mga tao or mga friends ko to do this to other people. For me, when I was doing it or when I observed this, it was more out of curiosity because I couldn't understand why people like guys. Why guys on guys would happen. Kasi back then, I didn't understand. And then, another reason for me was it was a power play. And for kids, during that time, especially growing up, determining alpha male, all boys school, I think it's more of like a power play, showing dominance. and that I can make you do this because I'm above you. I think yun yung root of why kids would do that. Pero I think ang pinaka-root nun, I'm no professional. I mean, I studied psych, but I'm no professional. It's more of like the curiosity behind it. Kasi yun nga we're in a society where it's a boy-girl. And for kids who don't have no education about this at all and have no exposure about gay people, would actually find this very intriguing. And they would find other ways and avenues just to like poke the lion and just know what will happen. So I think that's what happens for kids. Diba? Pero that's just the fear. That's just what I think, being in that situation. Ako naman yung other side, and I'm sorry, sir, for you to feel that. And I've been sorry naman for the things I've done. And yun, for me, that's on my side that is past.
Thanks, Ira, Roberto, and Brian. I think Ben is also raising his hand.
Yes, I also wanted to add something to what Brian said naman from a practical perspective, meaning ano yung napapractice ngayon, no? Cause we in our generation, hindi tayo lumaki doon sa meron ng meron ng batas for age appropriate sex education, for example, no. Kanina kasi I was in a talk naman with DLSU CSB students, and then they asked me kailan yung age when it's most appropriate to teach people about HIV. And then me and Doc Kate, who's our friend from SHIP, agreed na as early as possible, siguro sa bahay pa lang, no? Kung K to 12 yan, kinder pa lang, you have to find an age-appropriate way to teach about not just HIV, but about sex and consent and agency, no? So those two things are very important things. When you talk about abuse, yung consent, kanina pa natin pinag-uusapan. Pero yung isa, yung agency, yung kakayahan mo na kumilos para sa sarili mo. Maraming challenge dito, no, sa atin in our culture. For example, I was thinking kanina, how do you teach children consent and agency, no? I think that children should be taught na kapag bibihisan ka, kahit ng nanay mo, kailangan magpaalam muna yung nanay mo sa'yo. Can I help you in dressing up? Kapag susuklayin ang buhok, ganun din. Can I help you comb your hair? Kasi bata pa lang, alam na malalaman mo na no one can touch you without your consent. Whether that is pagsuklay ng buhok, pag-akbay, those small things, they're not sexual right away, but doon nagsa-start yun, di ba? Sa mga, paghimas-himas ng buhok. Wala tayong ganun, no? At least for me, I did not have that when I was growing up. And this idea of age-appropriate sex education, nalaman ko lang siya when I was already an HIV advocate. So, when I learned all about these concepts, I had to backtrack my attitude and review lahat ng ginawa ko sa buhay ko, and I realized there are things that I did that could have been abusive, and if wala kang introspection at hindi intentional yung pag-reflect mo, you can continue doing that to others, no. So I think tama yung sinabi ni Brian na there's a modeling aspect in a way, because sa bahay natin no one wants to talk about it, 'di ba? Parang I'm sure all of you can recall saan yung unang narinig yung concept about sex, 'di ba? Ako, I heard about it from my friends in school, 'di ba? When people are talking about circumcision already, tapos magpapatuli ka na, and then people are talking about circumcision without context. Tapos 'di ba yung circumcision, wala kang choice, hindi ka pwedeng tumanggi. So doon pa lang wala na tayong power over our bodies, na shit, wala akong power to stop this mutilation of my sexual organ, no. It is up to society to decide na I need to get circumcised, no. So parang for us, suddenly yung katawan natin naging social property, because we have to conform to social requirements, no? And if not, mabubuli ka. So all of that parang nadadala natin. And I'm really thankful na meron tayong mga bagong guidelines, laws, policies na you have to find a way to educate children in an age appropriate manner about sex and consent, HIV, sexual abuse, sexual harassment. We're getting there, and hopefully yung susunod na generation, itong mga natamaan ng mga law, we don't have to ask why do minors hit on minors, di ba? And for us, it serves as a reflection point na we had to ask that question because hindi talaga natin alam kung saan, alam mo, napakalalim ng pinanggalingan niya. And it's important to ask the question.
Right. And I like what you said, Ben, no, na we are, even as kids, we weren't empowered to have autonomy over our bodies. 'Di ba? Nung bata tayo, kahit even as simple as kissing us or hugging us, kailangan, 'di ba? Magpapaalam kahit sa mga bata. But it's so easy kasi for adults to, they think, of course, they're older, but they think they have power over us just because they're older and we're younger. That's why it's so easy for them to somehow take control over us and our bodies, diba? And even with our peers when we were young, sasabihin sa'yo, kunyari, aasarin ka or ibobody ka physically. Tapos pag hindi ka nakiride, ikaw pa yung corny, diba? So there's too much pressure on that. And you're right, we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about sex education enough. We don't talk about sexual abuse enough. Because there's so much fear and pain and trauma around it. And now, having said that, move on tayo sa ating next question, Ate Bill.
Yeah, so our next question is why it's really important for us to discuss or to talk about sexual abuse, because in this kind of question, bakit we're not talking about it. So we want to know why we're not talking about this, even though almost all of us experience it. And at the same time, why are the victims experiencing shame, sexual shame towards it? Sila na, or ikaw na nga na-victimize, ikaw pang nahihiya. And the third thing is, bakit saan nanggagaling yung stigma? Because in this kind of question, I have my own fair share about this. I experienced this as well. And usually kasi yung initial reaction ng human being is whether we'll fight or fly if we're in that situation. And it's so sad that most of us, yung pinipili is fly. Fly because during that time, it's still fresh in my mind na sobrang hiyang-hiya ako sa sarili ko na feeling ko, ang dumi-dumi ko. Yun yung totoo yun. Totoo yung context na yun, di ba nakikita natin na ang dumi-dumi ko. We're making a joke of it sa movies or whatsoever, but in reality, totoo yun. If you experience that. And nakakalungkot lang because nga, dahil nga hindi natin pinag-uusapan yun, I felt alone during that time. Hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko. Parang lutang ako. Super lost ako during that time. So, it's really important for us to discuss about this or to answer this because nga, whenever a certain person will experience that in the future, they know what to do. Yung sabi nga ni Roberto, a simple no will have a great impact. Kasi during that time, wala akong ganitong walang platform na may ganito. So, hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko. So, yung ginawa ko lang is, I chose na mag-flight, but the trauma is still there. So, yun. So I'm not sure if yung mga people then who experience this, yun din yung kanilang reason kung bakit hindi nila pinag-uusapan or hindi to na-escalate or hindi nasumbong. So yun. So I would like to ask, anyone can share or yes, Ira.
Oo. To answer your question, bakit sobrang hirap niyang ikwento sabihin. I think because dun sa karanasan ko, it felt like a big chunk of my pagkatao was taken away from me. And I don't feel complete. I don't feel strong enough. Dahil nga feeling ko may nawawala sa akin. Merong kinuha sa akin. At dahil doon, para akong napilayan. Parang naselyuhan yung bibig ko para magsalita, magkwento. And it really takes time para buuin mo ulit yun sa sarili mo. Para makuha mo yung lakas ng loob. Para finally, masabi mo na sa lahat. Ma-free mo na yung sarili mo dun sa bigat na nararamdaman mo. And I have to share this lang din kasi a friend of mine who was taken advantage of last year, he chose to keep it from everyone except me. After the incident, few hours after the incident, he came to me confessing na someone did something malicious towards him. He was taken advantage during the time that he was drunk. Imagine having a good time because it's my birthday. Tapos biglang dun sa lugar na akala mo masaya ka lang, may tao kang hindi mo naman kakilala. Pipiliting ipasok yung kamay niya dun sa pambaba mo. And he tried to push that person away from him. Pero yun, ulit-ulit ginagawa sa kanya. And nung kinwento niya yun sa akin, ang pinakabilin niya is sana wag mo nang sabihin dahil ayaw ka magkagulo. Ang tinanong ko naman sa kanya, bakit ka matatakot? Wala kang ginawang mali. When in fact, ikaw yung ginawa ng mali. So, yun, almost a year na nangyari. The issue just exploded recently. Dahil hindi ko alam na yung taong gumawa sa kanya noon, meron pa palang ibang taong biktima. Na yung ibang taong yon may lakas ng loob magkwento sa iba. Hanggang sa dumating na yung panahon na, alam mo yun, they just, parang naglabas na lang sila ng sama ng loob dun sa alam nilang avenue na walang manghuhusga sa kanila. Hanggang sa makarating na siya dun sa mga tamang taong dapat makaalam. At hanggang sa nagkaroon na rin ng lakas ng loob yung kaibigan ko na magsalita. Not really magsalita, pero sinulat na niya. Translated it into a formal complaint. As well as the other victims. And from there, parang gumaan na kahit papano yung loob nila. But still, nakikita ko na iba pa naming kaibigan na every time na pag-uusapan yun, parang may takot pa rin sa kanya, na parang ilang pa din siya. And I know na yung kung ano man naging hatol na, somehow, alam mo yun, unti-unti makaka-recover na yung kaibigan ko. Slowly. Yes. Miguel.
Yeah. I'll just segue that a bit, Ira. And thank you for sharing that because it also brings to light it also brings to light the reality that many people who have experienced abuse in the past don't want to come forward for fear of being labeled as malande. Sabi nga ni Dalton dito, many of them are being labeled or being stigmatized as malande. You guys are asking for it. You guys deserve it. Kasi nandiyan kayo. Why did you not bakit naman kayo naandyan? Bakit kayo umiinom? Why did you put yourself in that situation? And that's pretty much why one of the reasons why hindi natin a lot of the victims, a lot of survivors lost their voice. And I want to direct this to I want to direct this also to Brian, no. Like how is there any other reason why are why society why victims do not come forward, or are there or is there like a societal implication towards this?
Yeah.
Brian,
Yes.
internally, where is the shame coming from? Why
Yeah,
is it
yeah, thank you.
for them to talk about it?
Bill mentioned something earlier that struck me, that sense of yung madumi. Kasi I think it's almost as if like someone made us dirty with their own hands, and who we were is not complete. Yung I've been hearing this with people who've been sharing, parang may nakukuha from them. May portion ng kanilang pagkatao na kinukuha ng iba forcibly. So yung dumi also sounds like you are no longer what you were. That pristine quality of wholeness, nawawala siya. So partially, I think there's shame because there's self-blame. What could I have done differently? I think it threatens a very fundamental need of an individual to know that they're capable and competent of taking care of themselves. Kasi we need to believe that, diba? To function in the world as proper, independent individuals. Kaya natin alagaan ang sarili natin. Pero kapag may gumawa ng ganong violation sa pagkatao natin, parang it threatens that fundamental need to feel like we're capable of taking care of who we are. So, that shame, that may nagkamali ba ako? If only I didn't go to that party. If only I didn't trust that person. If only I didn't let them into my room. If only I did not talk to them in the first place wherever I spoke to them. This would not have happened. So it's so much self-blame, and that's difficult to overcome. Imagine that's internal. And then there is the external world telling you, baka may ginawa ka. Parang it's like, parang subliminal or implicitly telling you, you kind of deserved it. But that, in my mind, nobody deserves that. Yes, Chal.
Siguro, I'll also give another perspective. Kasi, if you're coming from a point, what Brian said, that you feel that you could have protected yourself, totoo yun. Kasi, you felt helpless. That person, ano ba? Imagine you're an adult saying that you could have protected yourself. But imagine this happening to someone who was so vulnerable, who blames himself after some time. Why did this happen to you? You let this happen to yourself, to your old self. And now that you're in a position that you could protect yourself and you could process things, you couldn't do that. You introspect. You ask yourself, at that point in time, bakit hindi ko pinotektahan yung sarili ko? Bakit hinayaan ko siyang mangyari? Dadating din yung thought, Pag sinabi ko ba to, may maniniwala ba sa akin? Pag sinabi ko ba to after the years that have passed, would people say, bakit yun mo lang siya sinasabi? Can you say it to someone that they had it coming when that at that point in time, that particular person felt it was good? But after 2 decades, can you blame that person after 2 decades of the feeling that he's feeling right now? You can't. And now that you, whew, now that I have the power to protect that old self, to protect that child, I will do everything in my power now to make sure that one, that child that was helpless, that was powerless, is protected now. And two, I need to forgive that child who felt that it was his fault, because it's not his fault. It's the perpetrator's fault. It's never his fault. And I need to forgive that child in order for me now to totally grasp that power. And I hate the idea that it took time for me to speak and to process things. Because yung question ni Bill and ni Ira, whatever it is that I'm telling you guys now, it took me 23 years to process. Imagine, if I come clean to anybody, to the people I love after 23 years, can you imagine what they'll tell me? Ha? Saan nanggagaling yan? 23 years? Are you sure? Parang, Chal, wala yun sa personality mo. What are you talking about? And that is one of the reasons why it's hard to speak out. Because society would always question you. Kine-question mo na nga yung sarili mo, yung mga naging desisyon mo, bakit siya nangyari. And then when you come out and you try to claim your power, society will tell you can't. So that's, for me, sorry, I'm taking too much airtime, but I just have to put that into perspective. That's the reason why people is afraid to talk about it. Because we don't let other people talk about it. And when people start talking about it, we question them. And that shouldn't happen.
Thank you, Chal.
Ben, I think, has input, Janlee.
Ben?
Ayan, am I unmute? Ayan, okay. I agree with what Chal said about, society not allowing people to talk about it, no? And that's very true. Yung sinabi ni Brian din na yung external response ng society becomes internalized in the person, na they really feel or anticipate ito yung magiging reaction, no? When you see your own police force blaming women for being victims of rape, for example, no, that becomes internalized in many women na kasalanan ko pala pag na-rape ako, no, hindi pala kasalanan ng rapist, kasalanan ng pananamit ko, no. And it's very important to put that out there na hindi mo kasalanan, no, kahit anong suot mo, kahit wala kang suot, no, it's not an invitation for rape, no. The second thing is, majority of us in this space are men or masculine, no? There's that expectation of masculinity din na kalalaki mong tao nagpa-abuso ka sa iba, no? And it's a very invalid argument na anyone can be a victim, no? And anyone can be a perpetrator, no? Wala yan sa soji nila, no? kung nandun yung intent, you will be you can be a perpetrator of these acts, no? So yung sarili nating expectation of our masculinity na kailangan magpakalalaki ako, tapos kailangan hindi ako mag-act like a victim, and also that internal guilt na our culture kasi is very guilty eh. I think it's siguro part of our Catholic upbringing na pinanganak ka na, may original sin ka na agad, so guilty ka na agad, no? So, while you're growing up, you bring that guilt with you. And everything that you do, kasalanan mo. That's your mindset, no? So, those things combined stop you from approaching anyone, no? And I have to put this out there because I've been in this advocacy for a long time, and I think uh, I am I hold a certain degree of responsibility as well. Um, when complaints started coming in to us, people were apologizing na I'm sorry it took us this long to tell you, no? And it's very important to parang to study how do you react to that, no? How do you react to I'm sorry ngayon lang kami nag-report, no? So I really had to pause and think what is the most appropriate response, no? And the appropriate response is hindi mo kasalanan because you need to take your time, no, to be able to deal with the emotional trauma of what happened and deal with the challenge of talking about it. Na kapag sinabi mo siya or pag pinag-usapan, natitrigger ka, di ba? Yung thoughts nga natitrigger ka eh. So much more reliving the whole thing. And I know it was a big challenge for the people we ask assistance from to write down the details. Sabi ko, hindi kailangang essay, hindi kailangang formal. Just something na totoo sa nararamdaman nyo, no? And I think that's a very big step for them, no? Considering na parang it hasn't been a year yet, no? Hindi pa siya 1 year before since it happened, no? So incidents like yung kay Chal na it took 23 years. Some people take 50 years. 'Di ba? Some people hide in different personalities, 'di ba? They develop personality disorders para lang matakpan yung childhood trauma nila. So we have to be patient, and especially in the community that we move in, na sexual rights is the parang it's the banner under which we are marching. So if you have a responsible position in that movement, you also have to parang step back and think, how do I respond when someone comes forward to me and tells me I've been abused, no? Kasi automatic yan, ang sasabihin mo yung mga common responses na bakit mo hinayaang mangyari, or kasi yun yung conditioning natin eh. So it's a very tough challenge, but I think talking about it is the first step, no? How do we deal with accepting the parang conversation about sexual abuse?
Thank you, Ben. Miguel.
Yeah, Janlee, I just want to I want to read something from the chat, from the comment section dito sa atin, no. Sabi ni Donty, there are people that don't respect personal space and limitations. It's not just because we become close doesn't give them the right to really take advantage of us. If they've been doing that for a couple of times to different people, then it could be a cognitive illness. But maybe it was because of an experience from their past that triggered them to do it. Basically what he's saying here is that parang the context is parang hurt people. Clea, Brian, I want to get your Oo nga pala. Brian, I want to get your take on this because you commented back to Donty, to some degree hurt people, but is this an excuse?
No.
Is there any reason for them to hurt other people? And how should we respond to this?
To be honest, I don't think there's any excuse to invade and disrespect and violate the boundaries of any individual.
Mm-mm.
So but to talk about how when we grow up in uh, households or families or not even families, if we have a lack of unconditional love and support, sometimes that can damage people to make them do things that hurt other people because they have been hurt in their past. That's not an excuse, but at least it also gives us the knowledge that this is another human being with a history of perhaps pain, and that the pain that was inflicted on them by the world, by themselves, is the pain that they're also inflicting on the individual who is the survivor of sexual assault, harassment, abuse, all of that. um, and I think I just want to say, the term victim, while is used, I think, in many legal cases, what we use in the field where we're caring for these people who come to us with complaints at the gender hub, we call them um, not just complainants, but we call them survivors.
Survivors, yes.
Because I think we also want to tell everyone who's gone through it and who is speaking up, when you survive, that means you have strength to keep going and to speak up. And that in itself is an exercise of power. So you're not just a victim, you are a survivor. You are powerful for just getting by, waking up each day, and continuing to keep living. But to speak up is already another explosion of power. So just to remind all of you, anyone who's experienced sexual harassment or abuse, you're not victims. The fact that you're still here, the fact that you're still going through your life, you are a survivor. And when you speak up, you become strong for everyone who's been afraid, who's been threatened, who's been violated. You become that beacon for all of them. So for me, that's what we use. Because I know sexual abuse
Sorry it took us this long to tell.
sorry. Yeah, I know sexual abuse sometimes it's almost as if that other people are taking our power. And that this is what I always remember. That power, honestly, even though it feels like that, that's always yours. So yun lang. Going back, yeah, hurt people, but there's no excuse for that kind of behavior.
Thank you,
Brian,
Brian.
Yes, yes.
meron lang tayong tanong dito sa Facebook kasi medyo nakalimutan na natin yung mga viewers natin sa Facebook kasi masyado tayong nadadala na dito sa ating usapan. It's from Leo. He asks, what can you say about young boys see it as a sexual initiation rather than an abusive exploitation?
Right. What is an initiation? Anong is like imposing your will on another person sexually?
Yes, parang nakita ko na to eh. Parang you have this, siguro mga frat or kung ano mang samahan na parang yun yung
anong gagawin nila?
Rights nila. Which is sobrang weird. Bakit yun?
They will initiate each other through assaulting that person who's going to be initiated sexually.
I think parang ang context niya, Ira, is that 'di ba pag bata tayo, parang gusto nating mag-explore, and yung kumbaga because magkakakilala tayo, parang it's a form of exploration for the kid. It's a form of and because we are able to explore that, it's kind of an initiation right for us, na lalo na pag lalaki, na pag nakipag-sex ka, whether it's a girl or a boy, lalo na kung I guess siguro minsan kung babae, parang natatakot pa sila baka mabuntis. Again, kaya lalaki na lang yung kukunin nila, yung kakaanuhan nila. So kung yun ganon, sexual awakening kumbaga.
Hindi talaga pumasok sa isip ko na yung mga tao, yung mga ganyang kabataan pa yung ganyan yung gagawin nila.
Siguro.
Parang nakita ko siya sa ibang perspective eh. Kasi I didn't expect na yun yung exact thought ng question niya. Kasi nga, di ba kanina, it was hard for me to understand why merong mga cases among minors. So again, meron na naman ganito. You're not saying na they're minors, pero siguro people of, wala pa sila sa tamang edad siguro. Diba? It's really hard for me na i-digest why. Ano yung mga reasons?
Isa pa yan. Parang what happens if your abuser is actually also minor? You're both the same age.
Yeah.
Para lang bigyan ng kasi may similar story din. Feeling ko hindi naman kasi siya initiation. Totoo yung exploratory phase. I think. Kasi like I came from an all-boys school. Totoo yung sinasabi nila, di ba, nag-circumcision ka and whatnot, ganyan. Pagka-circumcise, I vividly remember this. Nasa loob kami ng classroom, alam naman nila na may gay tendencies na ako at that age. Pero they're my brothers. As in, kaibigan ko sila. What happened was, ang konteksto ng usapan namin, uy, tingnan mo, papakita yung private part. Uy, tingnan mo, I'm growing pubic hair. Gano'n kakapal yung sayo? Uy, tingnan mo, mas malaki yung akin. Uy, tingnan mo, sa akin maganda yung pagkakatuli sa akin. Uy, tingnan mo. I think we were really exploring at a certain age when you're minor. Siguro, even up until you're 18. Di ba parang, I've lost my virginity already. Parang trophy siya. And most especially I'm not saying this as a concrete evidence, pero di ba parang may ganun tayo na, I lost my first kiss. Nakakita ako ng, siguro on a context na heterosexual, nakahawak na ako ng boobs. Naka-experience na ako ng may sumusubo ng ano ko. Not to extent na ginawa mo siya dahil may mali siya ka at that time, pero siguro, dahil nga din trophy or milestone siya. Dahil sabi nga natin, naive tayo at that age, na hindi natin naiisip na binabastos natin yung ibang tao. Then, not knowing na yung victim, yung victim natin at that particular time is already experiencing trauma.
Same thing, Chal. Nangyari rin sa kanya nung high school Kasi nung high school, nung grade school, I was being picked on for being effeminate. I was being picked on for being balamya. And they thought and everybody was saying, you're gay, ganyan. And because they labeled me as such, all the other guys who are more macho, who are more brusco than me, they keep, ang pag-uusapan kanila, pag-aanuhan kanila, like tipong, kuwari nando kami sa waiting area, sa waiting shed ng school bus, pagkatapos tapos magpaparinigan sila na parang mas malaki ethics ni ganito, ganyan. As yung ethics ni ganito, ganito. Tapos syempre, parang alam mo yung ipapakita pa nila, yung tatapat sila ng onti sa'yo para kunwari makikita, para marinig mo. Or kunwari, nagjakol kami sa sa banyo, ganyan, dahil whatever. Tapos paparinig talaga nila sa'yo. Kasi, for them, you're asking for it. You like this, right? You want this, right?
Yes.
Now it's now here's your fantasy. Let's play on your fantasy, ganon. And the problem, I got so confused then also. And this is where I want to segue to Brian and to Ben. I got so confused then. What am I supposed to be feeling? Am I supposed to feel violated? Am I supposed to feel horny? Because I felt both. And I got so confused. Kaya hindi ko alam kung ano ba talaga ako. Hindi ko alam kung kasalanan ba na maging bakla ako? Kasalanan ba na ma-feel ko yung mga ganito? Kasi, on one hand, nalimugan ako. Kasi, kasi cute yung mga kaklase ko On the other hand, why the hell are they talking about this in front of me? Do they think I'm gay? Or do they think that just because I'm gay, just because I'm gay, I want to get into bed with them, or I want to get into their pants? So I don't know. I got so confused. And that was part of the reason why it took me such a long time to come to terms with my sexuality also. Um, may, may certain psychological issue, may psychological implications ba yung mga ganon, Ben, Brian, sa development ng isang bata?
Yeah. I think, okay, parang contextualize lang natin to Kanina, diba, sinabi ni Ben na when a guy comes up, with up, what do you call that? When they come out with their story of sexual assault or abuse, many men or individuals who identify as men are shamed for that happening. Kasi ang sinasabi, kalalaki mong tao, paano mo pinayagan or inallow na mangyari yun sa'yo? And it makes me think, what does that mean when they say kalalaki mong tao? Do they say the same to women? I'm just curious. Do they say that when a woman comes out with sexual abuse, do they say, kababae mo? Do they say that? They kind of do, right? Kababae mong tao.
Yeah.
Paano mo pinayagan na
Kababae mong tao, bakit ganyan ka bakit ganyan ka nakadamit?
Right.
Bakit ganyan ka lumalabas?
Right. Pero what they tell women is that you should do things so that you don't get raped. You don't get heckled. You don't get abused. Meaning, don't wear sexy clothes. Wag kang magpakita ng cleavage. Wag kang masyadong nagme-makeup kapag lumalabas. For short, the women are told to tone it down. Whatever sensuality, beauty, sexuality that they innately have, don't be like that because they're asking for it. But when it's a guy, how did you allow this to happen? So it's like almost as if our culture tends to have an underlying parang condoning that the male will tend to want to do that, and the women are on the receiving end of it. So when they say to a guy who comes out with the story of sexual abuse, kalalaki mong tao, it's like telling them, so you're not the kind of man who can fight that off. So you're not fully a man. So what it means is that we call this toxic masculinity in upbringing, where boys are taught to have to struggle and elbow each other for power. So when they're teasing you, that when they're nagpaparinig na yung edits nila or yun, it's almost as if when they found out you were gay, you immediately did not become fully male. Diba when they call gay people, hindi ka naman totoong lalaki. Yan yung parang Tagalog term natin sa mga gay or non-straight. So what I think what they're doing is they are looking at you as not fully a man. And when they then they start treating you honestly, like how they would heckle a sexual object. Something that they can talk about in that kind of manner, where there's no more respect for the humanity and for who they are. So, does it answer your question, Miguel? I'm not sure if I'm
yeah, it did.
Yeah. Only because it's a very complex problem. This culture of permissiveness for power over other people. So, and usually it's skewed towards men talaga. Well,
thank you, Brian.
Heterosexual men. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, Ben also is raising his hand.
Yeah.
I just want to add to what Brian has been expounding on, yung element of culture. To answer yung kay Miguel and dun sa parang chat sa Facebook na question about seeing it as sexual initiation rather than abusive exploitation. Tapos yung confusion that, Miguel felt. I think, I think kasi ang sex instinctive yan eh. Parang we don't rationalize our response to a stimulus na if you are if you see something that's sexually stimulating to you, your body will instinctively respond to that. Pero yung culture natin, yung values natin, yung morals, yan yung intellectual side natin na we rationalize na parang doon nanggagaling I think yung confusion. So I think the confusion is valid talaga, no? And speaking of culture, yung sinasabi na some young boys see it as sexual initiation rather than exploitation is I think cultural in a way na you're making excuses for your violator. You are making, parang, it's another layer of psychological abuse, no? Hindi ka lang inabuso physically, inabuso ka pa psychologically. Parang gaslighting siya in a way na, you know, ito yung kultura natin dito sa institution na to. Hindi naman siya nangyayari na na parang one-off lang, di ba? Parang usually may mga cultural institutional context yan. Halimbawa, school. O sa school natin, ganito ang kultura. Kapag higher batch ka, you will be allowed to sexually exploit the lower batches. And then it continues so on and so forth until someone says na we have to put a stop to this culture of sexual abuse permissiveness. So you allow people to have power over you, not just physically but also psychologically, no? And the good thing about culture is that it changes, no? And right now I think the confusion is yung values natin ngayon, principles natin ngayon, I think you can all agree are very different from when we were younger, when we were in grade school and high school, no? To the point na medyo kinakasuklaman natin yung mga past selves natin, no? But we have to be forgiving. We have to advocate for parang character development, a very common term sa Twitter, na you allow space for character development. People can change and you can change as well. So ako, I admit that I have been beholden to so many olden cultural ideas about sex, and I try to forgive myself every day for having those thoughts because some of them wala akong choice. It was just parang society was acting on me na parang eto na yung norms natin at wala ka nang magagawa. But the thing is, meron tayong magagawa, and we can make space for forgiveness for ourselves na kaya nating magbago at kaya nating palitan yung kultura, no? So the confusion is normal, it's okay. The views might have been parang hindi na siya katanggap-tanggap ngayon, pero you have to move on from the past and forgive yourself, and always siguro I guess you also have to be you always have to apologize for the things that you might have done wrong, and continue to learn from it na lang. Yun. So it's a cultural thing, and we are here to have a conversation that can hopefully help change and shift culture.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And to add also to what you said about culture, I think also another reason why it's so deeply ingrained in us, this rape culture, this culture of sexual abuse, is because, and this is something I read from articles, and also something I learned from working in the HIV/AIDS and LGBT advocacy, is that we were colonized. And this colonization has such long-lasting impacts on us as Filipinos. When in fact, rape and colonization are very parallel. Rape is colonization of our bodies, and that's why it's so hard for us to say no. It's so hard for us to use our power. It's because we were colonized for hundreds of years, and it's not just gonna happen overnight that this culture will go away. Diba? But you're right, Ben, to your point, there is a silver lining. There has been a lot of progress. We are talking more about this. The Me Too movement that started in the US, which became global. So there is really progress. But I think here in the Philippines, it's even harder because we were once a colony, and that culture of colonization has even made it the culture of rape more pervasive. Okay, before we move on to the next question, no, Amadeus is raising his hand. Can we unmute him?
Go ahead, Amadeus. You can unmute
Can,
yourself.
yan.
Hello, good evening everyone. Narinig niyo ako?
Yeah.
Yes!
Hello. So, may question lang ako actually. How would you react or what will you do if your close friend, you find out that your close friend is a sexual predator or a rapist? But before you answer that, let me just share. Kasi I have this close friend which I used to admire. Like, sobrang sobrang yung admiration ko sa kanya and paghanga ko sa kanya. Then, one time, nung nagkukwentuhan kami, he said, may sinabi siya na parang, masarap yung bagets or masarap tumikim ng bata. Then, I called him out. Sinabi ko sa kanya na, it's not okay to, to have, though hindi naman sinabi na sinabi niya na makapag-sex or sinabi ko na it's not okay to have sex with minors. Kasi para sa tingin ko kasi he was referring to minors as in yung like 15 or 12 ganun. Kasi may mga pinakita rin siya sa aking pictures before that. Tapos ayun. Then after that I ended my relationship na with him. Parang friendship over na, parang I cut him off completely. So kayo speakers, what will you do kung kayo halimbawa if you find out that one of your friends or close friends is a sexual predator? Like ganun ba kagagawin niyo kagaya na ginawa ko or like isusumbong or what? Thank you.
Any one of the hosts who want to answer?
Roberto. Sige, si Roberto muna. Sorry.
Honestly, if I were in your position, ako personally I would not have actually left him behind. Parang I would have rather stayed na lang and observe further and actually gabayin. I don't know. Siguro, it's a lot of manipulation on my part. Pero kasi, instead of leaving the predator alone in the wild, parang at least when I'm around, I can like, pwede ko sawayin. Sabi ko, huy, tama na yan. Dito ka naman sa ganito. Normalize your life. Fix yourself. Kakaiba na yan. Alam mo yun, parang instead of just like being silent on what he's doing, try to change him or at least do something about it. I mean, I'm not gonna report him right away, but if that's gonna be, kung lalala, sige, fine. Ayun. Pero I would stay with him and yeah.
There's nothing wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong naman with your intention. Pero kasi, with my case, kasi, yun nga, di ba, I just shared na it happened, there was an incident that happened between a friend of mine from another circle and a friend. I was labeled as an enabler. One of the predators. Dahil dun sa mga ginawa ng kaibigan ko na hindi ko naman alam. That's a very reason why I distant myself. Kasi ang hirap tanggapin na...
Parang kasi if you distance yourself, you're also parang negating or parang, alam mo yung saying na parang evil people do bad things pero good people and the worst people stay silent. Parang
silent.
Ayun, parang ganong So parang ganon yung nangyayari kasi if you just leave them behind, I think. That's what I think. Kaya I wouldn't, ayun, I mean that's your part.
Yun naman kasi sa case ko, hindi lang kasi naging isa yung biktima. So paulit-ulit siya nangyayari and I feel like he has to learn in a hard way. Dahil merong mga taong hindi nagigising sa kulbet, sa kalampag, matinding alog ang kailangan niya para magising siya at matauhan siya dun sa mga ginawa niya. It was hard for me to let go of a friend na feeling ko meron kaming connection before. Na feeling ko we were on the same wavelength. Na yung mga bagay na gusto ko ay gusto din niya. Na magkasama kaming tumawag. Diba?
Pero parang di ba dapat as a friend nga, na dapat na real talk mo na siya sometimes.
I tried protecting him. Tapos, he actually told me about what happened, pero he blamed the victim for what happened. He made up stories. Inunahan niya actually. He made up stories na, ay, hindi, kasi ginagalaw niya itong ganito kong friend. Na inunahan na niya ako. Na para pagtakpan ko ano yung ginawa niya, he twisted the story. So, paano? And ang pinakabilin ng biktima, wag mo nang sabihin.
Paano pa? Sige, go.
I respect the victim's choice kasi I don't feel like I'm the right person to tell his story. It's out of respect dun sa biktima. Kasi nga, I myself is also a victim. So, baka kailangan pa niya ng panahon at oras para makolekta yung sarili niya. So, yun.
Ako, before, so sunod-sunod rin natin to, Janlee. Kasi si Niels at si Ben nag-ano rin eh. Pero I wanna interject also for this. Kasi, I agree with both Roberto and Ira. Kasi, and I think it's a case-to-case basis. And I think it also depends on the level of, on the level of friendship that you have. Kasi ako personally, if he was my friend, if he was a close friend, I would rather reel him in and tell him stop doing that. And anuhin ko muna, and syempre tatanungin ko muna, ano yung trigger nito? Ano yung context nito? What happened in your life that caused you to
twist in this way?
Yung ganon, to swing that way. Yan. So syempre gusto ko munang tanungin kung ano yung konteksto. Baka naman meron siyang again, hurt people. So you would want to get to the bottom of it first before you really make a judgment towards him. Pero kung wala na talagang pag-asa, then I would have to say, sige, tama naman, for your peace of mind and for the other person's peace of mind, go for the survivor's peace of mind, and go ahead, cut him off. I will go biblical here. Matthew 10:14 says, if he does not respond, shake that dust off your feet and get out of that house. Ganun lang naman yun eh. Pero as long as may chance, as long as may hope, as long as merong kakayahan na magbago ang isang tao, tulungan mong magbago siya. Yun yung sa akin. For me, ha?
Sa akin last na. Kasi, para lang to put it into context, it felt like I was taking care of a snake. He was hopeless.
That's the case, then
after multiple reports, what
if
he
that's
did,
the case, leave it to the professionals already.
and other than the abusive behavior, there were other issues pa. And I don't want to be involved kasi there were people na lumayo na sa akin dahil nga akala nila isa ako doon sa mga gumagawa din nun. I was judged without being asked kung ano ba yung nangyari at kung alam ko ba. Yun yung masakit na part sa akin.
May sinabi dito si Niels na sa chat box. Sabi niya, I wouldn't have left the person to the point of leaving, but I would definitely distance myself. So I guess, there's the compromise. There's a balance there. However, what's lacking here is action. This is where it gets really good. Action. One, how do we make that person accountable? Ano, makakatakas lang siya tapos na. Malay mo, predatory na nga pala siya. So makakatakasan ba siya? Ganon. And two, how can we help the victim? How can we help the survivor? Bakit natin nakakalimutan yung biktima? So again, yung ang buong punto ni Niels dito is ang focus natin dapat pag magre-respond tayo sa isang bagay, sa isang issue na katulad nito, it has to be our bias has to be towards the survivor. Kumbaga, yung action natin has to be towards that. Go.
Yeah. I think yun yung kulang sa kwento ko. It's that after I left that friend, doon ako pumunta sa biktima. Para I consult him. Tinulungan ko siya, ano ba dapat gawin. I connected him with people na mas makakatulong sa kanya. 'Di ba? Yun yung kulang na part doon sa kwento ko kanina, sorry. Kaya parang medyo parang napakawala kang kwenta kong friend, ganon. No. It's just we as his friend have to teach him siguro in a hard way talaga. Kasi alam mo ngayon, pautod ko sinasabi, yung tapik namin noon, yung callbit namin noon wasn't effective at all. We were there. Doon sa mga pagkakataong kailangan niya ng kaibigan. Pero this time, I don't think I have any involvement pa dito eh. He has to face this on his own. Harapin niya yung pagkakamali niya dahil siya lang mismo ang gumawa nun. I don't have control dun sa kung ano mapag-iisip niya nung ginawa niya yung bagay na yun. And the least that I can do, siguro, is dapat na-confronta ko siya. Pero yun nga, dahil sa respeto ko dun sa biktima, nanahimik ako. Hinintay ko yung pagkakataon na sila na yung magkwento at humarap.
Ira, may dako tayo ng onti kay Ben kasi kanina para may input ata si Ben ngayon. Yan.
So sorry, medyo gigil. Sorry.
Mukhang ate. Oo.
Okay lang yan.
It's okay. Okay lang yan. We understand. Ben, yes, go ahead.
I just want to add siguro a different perspective, and I've said this before to to some people who ask me about what happened, because some people thought na bakit mo nilaglag yung friend mo. But for me, sometimes the best way to be a friend is to help people learn their lesson the hard way. The best way to be a friend is to let people learn their lesson the hard way. No? When people commit abuse and come to you telling you about the abuse, that's not the first time that they did it. No? Because when you are able to tell people that you have abused someone, it means nag-adjust na yung morals mo. Naging proud ka na dun sa ginagawa mo. No? So, medyo na yan, personality disorder na yan. Na parang you abused someone, you abused a minor, and you're proud of it. No? So, it means there's something else underlying that's psychological. And it's not your job as a friend to be your friend's therapist. No? You are not a therapist, you are a friend. No? Hindi mo responsibilidad na iproseso yung mga trauma ng mga kaibigan mo. Yes, it's true that hurt people, but again, like what Brian said, it's not an excuse to abuse. In fact, it is your wake-up call to seek help, no? Hurt people hurt people. So, maghanap ka na ng therapist, maghanap ka na ng counselor. And every one of us have personal agency to do something for ourselves with our own body and our own mind, no? And as a friend, hindi mo kasalanan if they did not seek help. Hindi mo kasalanan na nang biktima sila ng ibang tao, no? So, hindi mo rin responsibilidad to stop them from committing abuse. because that is their own action, that is their own will, no? So I think the question, parang the apprehension in the question comes from the way that we view our relationships with friends, no? Yung friendships natin. And I think some friendships are toxic. Some friends are toxic talaga, and they will bring you to bad places. They will introduce you to bad habits. They will those are not friends, no? Those are not really your friends. They are probably uh seeking an audience for their whatever, whatever their trauma is. And as much as you want to, commiserate with this person, it is simply not our jobs to, to talk therapy with our friend, no? I'm sure if you see if you see a friend na paulit-ulit yung issue nila, nakakapagod, 'di ba? Parang yun na naman, yun na naman. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you need to talk to someone else, no? So, and that's yung sinabi dun sa chat na we always forget about the victim or the survivor. That is so true. Cause ang tinanong sa akin ng ibang tao was, kamusta na siya? I'm just thinking about the mental health of the person who was complained about. And my thinking was, kamusta yung mental health namin who had to deal with the whole thing, no?
Mm.
Na we had to deal with receiving complaints of people. The victims had to deal with their trauma. How about their mental health, no? Why are we worried about someone else's mental health when where they in fact are the ones who perpetrated the act with their own volition? We didn't push them, no? So I think it is necessary to parang review and analyze the boundaries of our friendships. Not just relationships, di ba? One of the best advice that I got is your boyfriend is not your therapist. So if you have any issue, you go to your therapist or counselor, no? And don't make your boyfriend your therapist or partner therapist. Because hindi niya kaya yung ganun na parang you're supposed to form a loving partnership together, not a counseling partnership. Eh di kung ganun pala, eh di bayaran mo na lang siya ng per session na 2,500. Mahal-mahal din yung therapy, ha, no? So, yun. So like what Neil said, our friends, our partners, our family are not our therapists. So, we let therapists do the job. Like si Brian, alam niya kung anong gagawin sa mga ganun situation. Our friends, unfortunately, not as well-versed, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. That was very eye-opening, no? Kasi ako Janlee, ako kasi I have a tendency to fix people even if they don't want to be fixed. Like, I really love to fix people. I love to look at problems and try to fix them, even if it means even at the expense of my own mental health. So thank you for putting us into perspective, Ben. Amadeus, I hope that answers your question. On that note though, Janlee, segue ko na sa akin, no? Push na.
Yes.
Yes. On that note though, on a very related note, Ben, Brian, how do we best support the survivors of sexual abuse? How can we empathize with them? How can we empower them to regain or to reclaim their voice? Kasi I will admit that the only thing that I can do is empathize or sympathize and listen, because I have not had any experience, because hindi ako the closest thing I got to being harassed was nung high school. And and when I was ganun lang. So for us, how can we support the survivors? How can we give them back their voice? Bill, you first. Go ahead.
Yeah, so to answer that question, di ba, we discussed earlier that number one thing that we need to do is do not question that person kung bakit nangyari yan. And then listen. We have to listen to them about their stories kasi it helps them na gumaan yung loob nila. And at the same time, let's patiently wait for them to be ready na para sabihin sa ibang tao or to escalate what happened. Kasi hindi natin job or wala tayo sa posisyon na encourage sila or i-force sila na, oh, dali na i-escalate mo yun. Because we have to consider their emotions. So yun. So I think those are the things that we really need to do as a support system to yung sabi nga ni ano kanina, yung term niya hindi victim but survivor. So yun. So I think those are the things that we need to do as a support system to the survivors.
Thanks, Bill. Ben, you first, and then Brian.
My perspective is medyo external pa, and usually these come medyo matagal pa no, after the counseling and the therapy, which I think is something that Brian will expound on. No? I think it's important to know our rights and the laws that protect us. So if we educate ourselves na ito yung mga hindi dapat natin maranasan pag lumabas tayo, then that's one of the best ways to protect ourselves and also our friends and our family and our partners from sexual abuse. No? So marami tayong mga batas actually that protects people from sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and other forms of sexual misconduct. No? So yung pinaka-recent dyan is yung Safe Spaces Act natin, or also known as Bawal ang Bastos Law. I think it was signed to 2018 or 2019, wherein it is upon any act of harassment, sexual harassment in the public is punished, no? And public includes online as well, so pati yung social media, no? In this scenario, hindi kailangan na merong magkaibang power dynamic, no? So hindi kailangan na teacher or student or professor or boss and employee. So anyone can if the perpetrator is out there on the streets, yung mga catcallers and everything, they can be made liable, no, for sexual harassment and be punished under the law, no. So sa labas, we are protected. Inside our communities, we're also protected. Yung Anti-Sexual Harassment Act naman protects us in our schools and in our workplaces, no? So hindi pwedeng gawin ng boss sa'yo itong mga, mag-ask for sexual favors in exchange for promotion or any other form of catcalling, kahit yung yung mga microaggressions sa meetings that have sexual undertones. Those are punishable as well. So kung yon punishable, mas lalo na yung mga acts, no? And then sa school ganun din, no? So if we have students who are listening, you are protected by law na hindi kayo pwedeng i-harass sexually sa school. And every school and every office has to have a sexual harassment committee, no, that people can report to. So if wala kayong ganun sa office or sa school, mag-demand kayo na kailangan meron tayong ganito para people know kung saan magre-report, no? Students know, employees know kung saan magre-report. Yung sa public naman, you can report of course, in a barangay or with the police, no? Pero usually kasi ito yung deterrent, di ba? Yung parang ayaw nilang magpunta talaga sa mga police station kasi sometimes it's also a place of abuse, no? So we have a lot of work to do in that regard as well, no? Of course, aside from that, there are more intimate cases of sexual abuse like rape and acts of lasciviousness, and this one has, I think, a more lasting trauma. While there are legal recourses, usually it takes a long time, no, bago magkaroon ng courage yung victim to come out or the survivor to come out, no? So I think this is where yung mga services, yung psychosocial support, counseling come in. I know one place, which is the UP Center for Women's Studies, which offers SOGI friendly service for counseling if you experience sexual abuse tapos you are a member of the LGBTQIAB plus community. So you can go to their website. I think it's cws.upd.edu.ph. I think we can probably put that somewhere. I'll type it na lang sa comment later. Yeah, so that's one place. And I think Brian knows a lot more.
Brian, also guys, if the audience has any input here, feel free to
Yes.
add, because this is about us supporting our community.
Right.
So so any input that you have, that's all welcome. That's welcome also. Yeah, Brian, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I think the question about what we can do as individuals with friends, with people we care for, who share with us that they went through abuse. I think the first thing they need first is believe them. So that's the first step. Don't put into doubt what their story is, that in any form, no doubt that what they're telling you at that moment is true. The second is, I think, other than being empathic, because I think that's been brought up multiple times during this talk that we've had for the past few hours. Don't force them to do anything. How can we sit with their story without us trying to impose our own desire for them to do something or to take action? Because the very fact that they're opening up, that already must have taken so much out of them just to do. So how can we honor that act as an act of bravery and let them sit with it until they're ready to move? Because I think the steps that Ben gave, those are the steps that happen after they've processed to some degree what happened to them, when they found some level of clarity. Because once they share with you an experience of sexual abuse, it can feel like an experience that is full of confusion, frustration, and self-blame. And that's like a muddled cloud of jumbled mess. They can't really, it's not clear. So to take action needs clarity. So for me, believe them, empathize, be a safe space for their story, but also allow them to go to move at their own pace, in their own. Don't force them to do anything that they might not be ready for. And if they're never ready to even talk about it, that's their right. Yun. Or if they're never ready to report it, karapatan nila yun. So I guess in a way, how can you give them space to claim their power, to own their story, and to take action according to what feels right to them? Maybe that's the answer.
Thank you, Brian. There's a question here on Facebook, no. I don't know how to answer this, pero what will happen if paano kung may kakilala kayong sexual predator? Do you have are you morally bound to report that? If you are, is there a number that you should call? What if that is your friend? Are you morally bound to report him? Ganon.
Yeah, maybe Ben can answer.
Yeah.
Sa morality, I
Or
think
legally bound, yeah.
I can't answer morally, no, pero I think that depends on the person. Pero legally, yes, you can be held liable na alam mo na may naganap na crime tapos hindi mo ni-report, no? So you can be penalized for that, no? I'm not sure lang kung gagawin kang parang accessory to the crime, parang may part ka ng crime, you abetted that crime to happen. Kasi for sure, if he did not report it, And ang sexual abuse, if not addressed, usually has a pattern, diba? It will continue until it is stopped. No? So, as hard as it is on our notion of friendship, you have to report. No? You have to stop the behavior. Parang nip the bud before it even sprouts fully, no? Kasi it goes with any behavior. I think um when your friend abuses drugs, for example, hindi mo siya, I mean, there are other ways naman na hindi legal, no? Na you can ask them to go to rehab, for example, no? You have that opportunity to parang help them out eh. In the Philippines, wala lang tayo nung parang sexual parang predator list na register, parang sexual predator register that is usually a deterrent for people na to keep doing the things that they do, yung abusive behavior. No? But in other countries, may ganun eh. Like I know in the US, they have a list of sexual predators, mga people who had a track record. And the fact that it exists, I think, stops people from committing or coming out. No? So as a friend, let us be the good friend and help them change their ways by cutting the abuse when we find out that there is abuse, reaching out to the victim or the survivor if you have an opportunity to. And I'm sure maraming trust issues yung survivor, so baka mahirapan ka din, but it usually takes a village to take care of the situation. I know because what we've been through. It took a whole barangay just to deal with the issue, and it takes it takes a chain of trust. Ask for help. If you're that friend nahuli mo, that your friend or na-confess, ask other friends. You don't have to bear it on your own. No? Hindi lang ikaw yung kailangan magkargo niya. No? So it takes a community. So let's all help each other out and addressing the abuse as well.
Thanks, Ben. I love what you said that it takes a community to help to help each other up. And speaking of community, the contact details for the centers or for the helplines or for the for the counseling centers or for the helplines that you wish to look for, that you want to look for, will be posted on the Spaces Manila Facebook page after the show. Okay?
Yes.
And also, just to ang gusto ko lang i-highlight, Madam Janlee, before you take it away to the last words of everyone, I want to highlight what Neil said also, just to complement and to add to what Ben and Brian said. As much as we support and maybe celebrate the strength and courage of people being able to gain the power to share their story, I think we should also practice and remember to exercise understanding, prudence when people are still processing. Because tama naman si Niels, kasi iba-iba ang timeline natin ng pag-cope, iba-iba ang timeline natin ng pag move forward sa isang bagay, lalo na sa isang bagay na ganitong kabigat. So ayun lang. On that note, Miss Mare, take it away.
Thank you so much, Miguel. And napakarami nating na-discuss ngayong gabi. Very, very informative, very
yes,
actually, and heart-tugging. So thank you for everyone, for my co-hosts and for our guests and members of the audience who have shared tonight despite the struggles and the difficulties. I know hindi madali at very, very challenging, but thank you for your courage. Thank you for speaking up. Before, just to mention also the groups that Miguel mentioned, we will post it on our pages, but you can reach out to Luna's Collective, FPOP Prevention Hotline, Achieve Inc., and TLF Share. So they have Facebook pages that you can visit there. So these are the support groups that you can contact in case you're a survivor or survivors of sexual abuse. So again, we're a community, diba? Sabi nga ni Ben, it's a community, and it's by working together that we can defeat this culture of sexual abuse. So before I move on to our hosts, may I just ask for messages of hope from our two guests. Ben?
Thank you, Janlee, and again, thank you, everyone in this show who made this happen. Thank you to Ira, to Roberto, to Chal for their courage in sharing, and I think it empowers people to start thinking about how do they tell their stories. No, thank you to Janlee and to Bill and to Miguel for effectively facilitating the conversations that are very difficult, very challenging, maybe a bit parang different or tangential dun sa mga usual mood natin when we are in Kings and Queens.
Yeah.
Thank you to Brian for the expertise that you've shared as well. And I just want to reiterate what I said na it really takes a community for us to address the issue. If you feel that you can't talk yet, do not feel that you are pressured to talk. Take your time. If you need help during that time, you reach out to support groups. There are lots of organizations like what Janly mentioned a while ago. There are also a lot of helplines online, no? And it might take some time, but I think if we're gonna do it together, it will be an easier journey for all of us. So let's be forgiving of ourselves, of course. That's first, and let us be informed of our rights. Let us also be informed of our options and where we can find help and support. Thank you po.
Thank you also, Ben. We value your insights and inputs, and we hope to have you again next time. And Brian?
Yeah. Right. I just want to say first, thank you for having me here on this show. I know, yeah, this is a very different kind of mood and topic for Kings and Queens, but I feel that the fact that you're brave enough to bring this topic on your show speaks on truly the integrity of the hosts and the people who are running this, but the bravery it takes to actually speak up. Because this is not an easy conversation to have. And the sharings I've seen from the people who are even in this Zoom have been so brave in just talking about their stories and their truths and their ideas. I think for everyone who's listening, if you know someone or if you're going through sexual abuse or if you've gone through it yourself, the only thing I want to say is that this is it's not a very easy thing to deal with. Having a story of someone taking your power, someone violating what belongs to you. So be kind to yourself and know that it wasn't your fault. Validate that the pain you feel, the confusion, the sense of self blame or shame, that's real and that's valid too. And I think that maybe that can be the beginning, just to know that what you feel, all of it is true and valid. And you deserve to feel all of that because that's yours. Maybe that can be the beginning of you not healing or mending or like hope na you have a brighter future, but the beginning of you taking a step so that you can reclaim what was taken, reclaim your power, and begin maybe to share it with someone you trust. And that's already one of the biggest steps you can take. And even that, just opening up to just one person, that's like pat on the back. That's like a triumph. You just won a war. And just to honor that journey. And it will always take a different pacing for each one. So maybe that. only because I don't want to end this with like very kumbaya na "Oh, it's all going to be better, silver lining, the world gonna you we're all kind of in a crappy place in the world right now, and this pandemic parang hindi natin makita yung end in sight. So I think any journey of healing, just take it day by day. Yun lang. And honor what you feel at that moment. And when you find a safe space and if someone is empathic and kind enough to listen to you without judgment, maybe if you feel like it, open up. Because once you begin to talk about it, you will begin to clarify that jumbled mess of emotion and experience. And maybe then, something will open up where healing occurs. Yun lang. Okay? That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Brian. So honor what you feel at the moment and do what you have deal what you have to deal with day by day. Thank you. And of course, from our hosts, Chal.
All right. So hindi siya I think the hosts agreed na it's not gonna be a synthesis. It's gonna be words of hope. I'm saying it now, and I'm saying to everybody who's watching, everybody who's in the room, I am a victim of childhood sexual abuse. But I am not my trauma, and you are not your trauma. You are made up of such a strong emotional fiber for you to let that trauma define you. You are a beautiful person. That trauma will never and should never hinder you from being a good person. You could always choose to stop the cycle. I know hurt people, and I know you're hurt. But even though you're hurt, you can always choose kindness. But before choosing to be kind to 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 other people, first choose to be kind to yourself. Choose to forgive yourself. Choose to give yourself time to process things because it's not going to be easy. It will take time. But as long as you try to protect that old self, that person who was helpless, that was powerless, and try to be kinder to that person, you're on the right track. So just take time. It's not easy. You have the whole community behind you. And yeah, reclaim your power. And this is Chal, your Bartang Barbie, saying that in a world full of conformity, never be afraid to be the irony, and it will unleash who you are meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chal. Bill?
Okay. Parang ang hirap sundan ng kay Chal. Pero so yun sa topic kasi natin, anyone can be a victim of sexual abuse. Based sa discussion natin, halos lahat dito naging victim. And do not be ashamed. And most importantly, do not blame yourself or because hindi nyo naging kasalanan na naging victim kayo. Or hindi natin kasalanan naging victim na. But always keep in mind that you are not alone in this fight. You have the whole community to support you. That's why we have this kind of platform. We are lucky enough that I'm so lucky enough that I'm part of this platform to make sure na moving forward will educate people or moving forward hindi na mangyayari to. Self-blaming or para in the future alam ng mga next generation kung anong gagawin, like a simple no can help na hindi mangyari or maging victim ka ng ano. So So, yun lang yung gusto kong sabihin. We are always here for you guys. Don't feel that you're alone in this fight. Kasi madaming tao yung nagsusupport sa inyo. And to end this night as well, I'm Bill, your host, saying that always be yourself and you will be happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And Roberto.
Okay. There was also a person here. Sorry, hindi ako sanay talaga maging nega, so I'm just gonna smile a lot now. There was a panelist. There was a comment in Facebook asking, for the panelists who have experienced sexual abuse, how did you take charge of your life after the boyhood sexual abuse? Sige, that will be my message for tonight, and it's gonna be hopeful. Sana hopeful. I agree. I agree to what Brian said. It was a huge step for me to talk to someone. But for me, I learned to survive by learning such a strong yet appropriate skill of compartmentalizing. Natuto ko mag-compartmentalize, and that's how I was able to put it in the little box. Siguro I kept it within me for a while. Pero later on, I started burning that box I started talking about it so that the power of fear will no longer have its grasp on me. Siguro mga 3 fingers na yung natanggal ko. 2 fingers na lang, okay na ako about it. Pero joke lang. Pero what really helped me after burning that box, I poured myself with so much love. I poured myself with so much love from the people. I give and get the love from the people around me. And I tried to expand my network, and I tried to share more love and receive love. And it is from that happiness and from that love, I was able to at least water the flames of hate. And so yun nga, and that's how I survived it. I survived with good vibes and good smiles. And that's Roberto saying good night. And of course, guys, this doesn't end here. The hosts are always here.
Yes.
If you guys want, if you feel any trust or any affinity towards any of us, of course, we are more than happy to lend an ear. We're not professionals, like what he said. We're not professionals, pero we're here to listen as well. Yun nga. Good night, guys.
Thank you, Roberto and Miguel.
First, I want to honor each and every one of you. My friends, my family, Chal, Ira, Roberto, and also all of those who have shared their stories online, share their stories on the chat boxes. I want to honor you for being so brave, for being so for finding your voice, for having the courage to speak out. It is so I am so proud of all of you. You are truly some of the bravest, some of the purest souls I have ever met. We are a community here. We are a family. And regardless of what we have in the past, it does not define us. Your past does not define you. Your circumstances do not define you. What defines you is your response to those issues in the past. What defines you is your voice. So I hope that you find your voice soon. To those who are still struggling now, I pray that you find your voice soon. I pray that you reclaim your strength, and so that you can also help other people reclaim their strength. Always remember that we are here for you. Always remember that we are your safe space. That we are your community, that this community is more than just your friends. That even if There are people who hurt you within the community. There are more people who will support you. There are more people who will lift you up. There are more people who will help you through what is happening in your life. I pray that you guys see the goodness again in us, in our community. I know there's trauma there, but there's also hope. I know there's hate, but there's also love. And we are here to love you. So, having said that, continue to engage each other, continue to inspire each other, and continue to speak the truth in love to each other so that you can empower one another to be a better person in in a better community. Thank you. Janlee, nawawala ka. Hindi kita
Hello.
marinig. Ayan, okay na.
Thank you, Miguel, and Ira.
Ayun. We barely scratched the surface of this very wide and sensitive topic. Pero I just want everyone, especially those victims, to know na if you want to voice out, I can lend my ear. I can give you my time. Because I, for myself, was also a victim. And I chose to be a champion of that very inhumane act that was done towards me. And I choose to stand up for the rest of all of the victims out there. Hindi ko alam kung ano pa yung sabihin ko, pero sa lahat ng naranasan ko, isa lang yung natutunan ko. It is to not let my past define the person that I am going to be. Because I always choose to forgive. Mahirap, pero kailangan natin gawin. Hindi lang siya basta-basta pagpapatawa dun sa taong nakasakit sa'yo, kundi pagpapatawad din sa sarili mo. Dahil sa mga pagkakataong wala kang choice, hindi mo kasalanan yun. And I just want to thank everyone who's still inside this room because I feel the love from you guys. Especially to the other hosts. Ngayon lang tayo ulit tumagal ng ganito kahaba. And finally, we were able to discuss this. And finally, I have freed myself. Kasi this was actually the very first time I told everyone about what happened to me. Not even my college friends, my childhood friends, no one. Kings and Queens is the first avenue where I voiced out what happened to me. And I'm very, very thankful dahil yung katahimikang nararamdaman, naririnig ko ngayon. Ito yung katahimikan na alam kong may nakikinig sa akin. I'm very grateful for that. And I just hope na from that experience, God will still continue to bless me, make me a better person, a loving and a forgiving person. That's all. And thank you po.
Thank you, Ira. And thank you, again, thank you to our guests and our co-hosts. And for me,
Yes.
you know, everything has been said, but I guess my message is for everyone, regardless if you have experienced sexual abuse or not. The message here is for everyone to create a culture where people will be open to talk about their pains, their struggles, and their traumas, because this will not work one way. It has to work we have to work together in order for this, in order for a more empathic community to thrive. Diba? Kasi no matter how courageous survivors are, if there are no ears willing to listen and help, then it's gonna be for nothing. So I hope that for those who might not have experienced sexual abuse, you also, it all starts with listening and empathy, and it goes a very long way. And I hope we can all work together and contribute to this very worthwhile cause. And thank you so much, everyone, for staying and for listening. I hope you were able to learn a lot tonight. And again, this doesn't end here. This is just the beginning, actually. We're just scratching the surface, as Ira said. So after this episode, we can continue talking. You can reach out to us. You can talk to us. We are here to listen to you and to help in any way we can. So again, thank you to our guests, to our audience, to our hosts. Again, Kinks and Queens is brought to you by Love Yourself Inc. and SpacesMNL, sponsored by Bliss for Bliss Premier Condoms, Bliss, and Camber Pharmaceuticals by Hetero. And please do watch the other shows under the SpacesMNL channel: Flourish Hour, Fact You, Love, Sex, and Drags, Herstory, and Queen's Night. So that's it for tonight, everyone. See you again next Friday for another episode of your weekly Friday night Kweentuhan, about anything and everything kinky and queenly for the greater queer community. Kings and Queens, thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone. Love you guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Brian and Ben.
Thank you,
Good night,
Brian and
everybody.
Ben.
Good night po.